The light gap is deep, love has not left away. Chapter 1 Lonely Shadow Staying, a low-key starting point. On the edge of the quiet town, the sky is slightly grey and the drizzle is falling. Goofy Fei carried his school bag on his back, stood at the door of his mother's sister-in-law Lin Yao's house, and pressed the doorbell with a slightly trembling hand. After the early death of her parents, she has been low-key since she was a child, and her heart is as cautious as a cocoon, and she has never dared to be tempted by anyone, let alone hope for the future. Lin Yao is her mother's sister-in-law, with a bold personality but a little indifference, and a solid family. Fei silently adapts to this new environment, and doesn't say much on weekdays, just to not bother. However, fate crept in one afternoon. Lin Yao's cousin, Shen Che, returned to this home. He was tall, and his eyes were deep, like a cold sword that could see through people's hearts. Fei inadvertently, her heartbeat fluctuated a little more. Chapter 2 The glimmer of light is beginning to appear, and the heart is underflowing. Shen Che's return broke the peace at home. The interaction between him and Fei gradually became more frequent, and there was always a trace of indescribable ambiguity between the two. Fei has never been attracted to people, but she feels a different temperature in Shen Che, which is a secret hidden deep in her heart. By chance, she found that Shen Che was staring out the window alone late at night, with an incomprehensible sadness hidden between her eyebrows. Fei inadvertently handed over a cup of hot tea. Shen Che looked at him, and said lightly, "Thank you." The bond of the heart is planted inadvertently. Fei's heart began to shake quietly. Chapter 3 Emotions that should not be woven into a web. Time flows like water, and the relationship between Fei and Shen Che is getting closer and closer. However, this emotion is like a thin thread tied in the wind, both beautiful and fragile. On the day of the wedding, Fei was wearing a plain wedding dress, and there was light in her eyes, but Shen Che's eyes were still cold, as far away as winter. 3 years after marriage, Shen Che's indifference and distrust became a shadow in Fei's heart. Whenever she stretched out her hand to get closer, she was met with ruthless rejection and suspicion. The suppressed love made her breathless, and her grievances became her silent tears. Chapter 4 Disintegrate the edge and choose to let go. Fei gradually woke up in loneliness and understood that he shouldn't live like this. She struggled to break free from the walls built by Shen Che and decided to give herself a fresh start. On the day of leaving, Fei gently closed the door, with a reluctant but firm back. She began to rediscover herself, find her own light, and learn to live her life bravely. Chapter 5 Turning the Tide and Chasing His Wife. After Shen Che left, he was shocked to realize that his feelings for her were extraordinary. He began to reflect on the reason for his apathy, which stemmed from the pain and fear of the past. He is constantly looking for Fei, wanting to make up for the alienation and hurt he once had. Confession and sincerity again and again gradually opened the ice in Fei's heart. Chapter 6 The Light Returns, Dancing Hand in Hand. In a chance encounter, Fei and Shen Che face each other again. The two exchanged heartfelt complaints, tears, and smiles intertwined. Shen Che made a promise, "This time, I will protect you and accompany you on your way." Fei nodded, his eyes full of determination. She understands that love is not just about possession, but about respect and understanding. Chapter 7 The years are like a song, and happiness continues. Many years later, Fei and Shen Che stood hand in hand in the sun, went through wind and rain, and finally found peace and happiness that belonged to each other. Fei became a confident and independent woman, and Shen Che learned to open her heart and protect sincerely. The two use love as a sword to cut through the haze of the past and move towards the bright future. Chapter 8 Revisiting the Old Land, Renewing the Landscape. At the end of that summer, Fei returned to her mother's hometown to participate in a charity exhibition where mountains and seas were intertwined, which was the most beautiful memory of her childhood. She stood on the edge of the blue coastline, the sea breeze blowing her hair and blowing away the remaining pain in her heart. This time, she is not here to escape, but to say goodbye to the past and welcome a new life. Shen Che came quietly. He stood not far away, looking at the woman who had been alienated by him, but who was still strong. Under the sun, her eyebrows and eyes are warm, her temperament is clear, and she is no longer the girl who was careful for him in the past. Fi Fei. He whispered her name. She turned her head and smiled slightly. You're here. Shen Che walked up to her and didn't say much, just handed her the thick sketchbook in his hand. He personally drew the memories of the past 3 years with her. I remember all the times you laughed, and I remember the way you cried for me. I've missed too much, but I don't want to miss another opportunity. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 9, They and She, Shadows of the Past. Just as Fi Fei was about to give Shen Che another chance, a woman named Jiao Lanzhao appeared. Jiao Lanzhao was Shen Che's former lover, and it was also the source of his indifference back then. At that time, Shen Che was betrayed by Jiao Lanzhao and closed his heart from then on. Now Lanzhou has returned, claiming to make up for his mistakes. Fei Fei didn't panic. She is no longer the woman who was shaken by the slightest turmoil in the past. She just said quietly, loving someone is not by waiting for the opportunity to intervene, but by knowing how to let go in time. Shen Che said resolutely, I have broken off with the past, and in the future, there will only be Fi Fei in my world. Jiao Lanzhao left quietly, and the wind took away the broken memories, and also made Fi Fei finally let go of the last doubt in his heart. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 10, 3 years together, one heart remains unchanged. On the 3rd anniversary, Fi Fei re-entered the familiar mansion. The courtyard has not changed, but it has added a bit of gentleness and fireworks. Shen Che made a table of meals with his own hands, and he was meticulous in every detail. Fi Fei looked at him skillfully tying his apron, hurried but cautious, and his eyes were slightly hot. You've never cooked before. She spoke softly. But I'm willing to change it for you. He handed over a bowl of soup and looked calm. From now on, the kitchen belongs to me, and the home belongs to you. Fi Fei smiled lightly, took the soup bowl, and suddenly returned to the cup of tea he handed her when she first met, no longer indifferent, only warm. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 11, The blooming light belongs to its own name. Fei Fei's design brand Fog White has become the focus of the industry, and she is no longer the girl who relies on others to protect her, but an independent woman who shines in the spotlight. At an international exhibition, she gave a speech on behalf of Chinese designers, and Shen Che, the quietest audience in the audience, sat in the audience. He didn't interfere in her business, he just watched silently behind him. Every time she succeeded, he smiled silently in the applause. I'm no longer the one behind you who can only wait, she said in her speech, and now I am myself, and I am capable of loving and being loved. The audience applauded thunderously. Shen Che only stared at her eyes, full of pride and respect. Underscore 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 un. Chapter 12 Don't miss any more and go for the rest of your life together. Shen Che planned a simple but affectionate wedding ceremony, witnessed only by close relatives and friends and the familiar sea breeze. This time, it's not a family arrangement, it's not a compensation for mistakes. In his oath, he said, it was I who willingly asked you to marry. Fei Fei nodded, tears glistening. She finally understands that true love is not to move the other person, but to become a person worthy of love first. Love is not her only one, but her choice after she blooms freely. Chapter 13, Spring is coming, old dreams are coming back. After marriage, Fi Fei and Shen Che lived a peaceful but unsuccessful life. They moved to a 2-story cottage facing the lake, with 4 distinct seasons and lush vegetation, which was what Fi Fei had dreamed of. There is an old maple tree by the lake, which is a must-stop for them on their evening walks. That night, the spring breeze was slightly warm. Fi Fei leaned on Shen Che's shoulder, and said softly, Do you remember the essay I wrote when I was a freshman in high school? Said I want to live by the lake in the future, with a lot of books, a studio, and a person who can cook. Shen Che chuckled, I remember, when you secretly stuffed it to me, I pretended not to see it. Fei Fei pushed him, you pretend to be quite similar. And now? He looked sideways at her, tenderness in his eyes. Now it's all there. She smiled and took his hand. Chapter 14 The storm comes, the distance between life and death. Happiness never means that there are no waves. Chen Che was in a car accident while on a business trip. Although he was not seriously injured, he was in a coma. Fei Fei rushed to the hospital and stayed by his bedside without sleep. She held his hand and said in a trembling voice, "In the past few years, I have learned not to rely on and not to expect. But you are not allowed to leave me, for I still want to be willful to you." Shen Che was half asleep and half awake, and felt her trembling kiss fall on the palm of her hand. At that moment, he knew that he could not afford to lose her again in this life. 3 days later, the first thing Shen Che said when he woke up was, "The porridge you cooked is still too light." Fei Fei's eyes reddened. "If you are picky, be picky, don't faint and come back to find fault." Shen Che smiled, "Then you have to be picky." Chapter 15 Two people start a family, 3 people become a poem. A year later, Fei Fei gave birth to a baby girl named Che Che, which symbolizes clear emotions and is also the imprint of her and Shen Che's names. Shen Che looked at the child's sleeping face and said with emotion, "In the past, I always thought that love was possession, but then I learned to let go, and finally I learned that true love is to be willing to let the other party become the best version of yourself." Fei Fei leaned on his arms and said softly, "We have survived the most difficult years, and the current days belong only to us." In front of the window, the sun poured into the window, and the family of 3 was immersed in the quiet years. The pain of the past is like foreshadowing, but now happiness has become the best answer. Chapter 16 Back to normal, still shining. Fei Fei handed over the brand management to the team, and Shen Che also stepped down as vice president of the group, choosing to spend more time with family and each other. They grow vegetables together, raise cats, travel, and watch their daughter babble to toddler. These ordinary moments are more touching than any brilliance. At one point, a neighbor asked them if they had ever quarreled. Shen Che smiled and said, "I always thought that she couldn't do without me, but later I realized that I couldn't do without her. Xiao Xiao, currently Ji Dao. I should have known it a long time ago." He said. The years are like a song, they go from missing to reuniting, from confusion to determination. Time has taught them to love tenderly and to be better people for each other. Chapter 17 An unfinished dream, a perfect ending. On the day of the 10th anniversary, Shen Che secretly prepared an exhibition with the theme of Coming in the Clouds. The content of the exhibition is all Fei Fei's design sketches from childhood to adulthood, from graffiti on a worn-out notebook to the concept draft of Chinese costumes at international exhibitions. He let everyone see the growth and persistence of this woman. The moment Fei Fei stepped into the exhibition, she almost burst into tears. "These are not drafts that should be hidden," she whispered. Shen Che whispered in her ear, "They record your light and are the testimony of you becoming yourself." At the scene, he knelt down on one knee again, this time not proposing, but thanking. "Thank you for being who you are and for teaching me how to love people." Perfect ending. Decades later, Fei Fei and Shen Che sat in rocking chairs by the lake and watched their granddaughter chase butterflies in the garden. Fei Fei's wrinkles were piled up, but his smile was bright, and Shen Che's beard was slightly white, but his eyes were still affectionate. "Do you regret snubbing me for those 3 years?" Fei Fei asked lightly. Shen Che held her hand and said firmly, "Regret. But I'm glad you didn't leave me." "Yes," she whispered, "fortunately, at that time, I chose myself and you." As the sky gradually darkened, Fei Fei leaned her head on his shoulder. "We're all in this life," she murmured softly, "and it's good." Postscript. This is a love that comes from a low place, not a fairy tale, but a practice in reality. Fei Fei has gone from a little girl under the fence to a confident and independent designer. Shen Che went from an indifferent and closed teenager to a man who was willing to take off his armor to protect his family. The preciousness of this love lies not in the initial throbbing, but in the choice after the reunion. I hope you and I can be like this, neither humble nor arrogant, neither let down nor regret. In the long years, it is not only each other's home, but also each other's light.